Two big things. I'm Stephen Means, and that's Stefan Krajisnik, and this is a Buckeye Talk video as Ohio State switches its focus to Minnesota coming off its first Big Ten win over Washington over the weekend. Big Ten home opener against PJ Fleck in the Golden Gopher. This is where we talk about what we're looking to ask Ryan Day during his Tuesday press conference. Just something in general we're interested in throughout the week that we think is important heading into Ohio State's game week. Again, Minnesota on Saturday. First night game in the Big Ten. Did they have a night game last year? I don't remember. It's been so long since they've had a night Big Ten game. Do you know the last time they had a Big Ten night game?
Yeah, because I wrote about it when they announced the Minnesota. I think it was Michigan State in 2023, maybe.
You're right, because they wore the gray jerseys that game. So I'm wondering if they pull out some alternates this week. I think they should pull out the all blacks, but people have been telling me they don't make the jerseys anymore. Well, too bad. Figure it out.
You posted this on Twitter, the black helmet with the black and red, black and scarlet Buckeye leaves.
Yeah.
Very casually, like, sitting in Ryan Day's office, according to the CBS package that they did ahead of the Washington game. So there's something there. He at least likes it enough to have it at his office.
Find the jerseys and put them on. You got a night game. Wear them. That's not what we're interested in, though. Stefan, what are you interested in talking with Ryan Day about this week?
I kind of do want to talk about the jerseys now. Now I want to talk about the guys wearing the jerseys, whatever jerseys they decide to wear. And I want to ask about Edric Houston specifically. You know, Ryan Day was asked about Edric Houston going into the Washington game. I believe it was going into the Washington game about, the injury he had early in camp, if that maybe set him back. Is he still kind of catching up from that? And Ryan Day he kind of went away from talking about the injury. He didn't use that as an excuse or anything like that, and just talked about wanting to see a bit more consistency from Edric Houston in his play. And you and I both thought maybe the reason Tywone Malone played so much against Ohio was because the week before Edric had some penalties. Maybe this was kind of like a silent discipline thing for the penalties, and we're going to start Tywone Malone. And then against Washington, Edric Houston played, I think it was 11 snaps. We didn't see him a ton. I know you had mentioned perhaps after the game that he had ice on. I think was it his ankle? You said he had some ice wrapped around. So maybe there's a something that was tweaked or whatever it may be. So let's I want to ask Ryan Day about that. Is there still an injury thing, or is there a new injury thing? And whether there is or there isn't, a guy who we expected to be an all Big Ten caliber player for Ohio State is 4 games in and he's not starting. And if it's a consistency thing, if it's a production thing, whatever it may be, how do you keep a guy like that engaged and on the right side of things mentally, right? Because this is a lot for college football players to have to handle, right? Of an expected role and then not living up to expectations and still, battling and trying to get to that point, but you're losing snaps. There's a lot that's just something's not going right with the Edric Houston situation compared to what we all projected and predicted, right? Like, he was not only going to be a starter for this team, but when we looked at it and we said, Caleb Downs is coming back, Davis Igbinosun's coming back, Sonny Styles is coming back. We're pretty confident in Caden McDonald and Arvell Reese and Jermaine Matthews. And then who's that next guy that we're confident in? And I think we all pointed to Edric Houston because he played such a big role for the 2024 team late in the season, right? When the game started to matter the most is when we just saw Edric Houston's role continue to grow and grow as he moved from defensive end to defensive tackle. He became an important part of that defense. And now we're 4 games into 2025 and we're hardly seeing him play. And I know he had an unsportsmanlike penalty against Washington. I'm sure that played into, the limited snaps. But what is your message? What do you say to Edric Houston when he's obviously kind of, battling uphill right now as this season, gets going with Big Ten play? What do you say to him? What's your message to him? And how does Ohio State get him back into the mix? Because even if, I think Tywone Malone is playing well, right? Like, I think he's playing starter caliber. I don't know if he's playing all Big Ten caliber, but he's playing starter caliber defense for Ohio State. That's fine, but what's next behind that thing? Because we're still talking about defensive tackle depth, and maybe it's not the top 2 guys that we thought, but okay, is Edric Houston your number 3 guy? Is he your number 4 guy? If so, you want to see some elevated play from him as well. So there's still some questions I have at defensive tackle, and I think a lot of that centers around, will we see a version of Edric Houston that we expected to see as this season progresses?
And this was the first game this past weekend where you could take that theory and go, okay, no, there is something happening there, right? First game, Taiwan Malone played 14 snaps against Texas, 13 against Grambling, 18 against Ohio, and then 30 against Washington. Edric Houston played 39 snaps against Texas, 10 against Grambling, 18 against Ohio, only 12 against Washington. So something has flipped with those two over the first month of the season, to where Edric Houston went from against Texas, you can't take this guy off of the field, to now he's playing a rotational role. And that's credit to Taiwan Malone. He's put himself in the position where Larry Johnson and this Ohio State defensive coaching staff trust him to be out there. But is Edric Houston playing less a result of Taiwan Malone playing better, or is there something going on with Edric Houston that we don't know about that's drastically changed our view of him over the first month versus where it has been for the first 9 months as they were preparing for this season? I've been talking about it all weekend, and I just want to dive into it with Ryan Day. This offense is its superpower. And right now, it just kind of feels like the offense is only being the superpower when it's necessary to be that superpower. And I don't know if that's a good thing, a bad thing, or indifferent, but it is a thing when your offense is averaging 61.25 points per plays per game. Excuse me. Last year, they averaged 61.2 plays per game. The year before that, 63.9 plays per game. 3 years in a row where they've had an elite defense, they've been under 65 plays per game. Now, granted, some of that is clock rule changings, and some of the rules in college football changing, expanded playoff. Maybe you want to load manage your way through a season, but when you're 73 plays, 80 plays, 76 plays, 71 plays, 70 plays, 67 plays, in the other years that Ryan Day has been running things on offense, and then now all of a sudden, the weapons haven't changed. You still got elite quarterback, still got elite receivers, right? The offensive line has been great. Austin Saravel's been a dude at left tackle, right? Bo Jackson is starting to emerge as a running back for you, but it just doesn't feel like we're seeing the Ferrari act like a Ferrari right now. And how much of that is our defense allows us to not feel like we have to be pedal to the metal on every single snap, because if we're not, we're going to lose games 35-31. How much of it is you're trying to slow play Julian Sand, no matter how many times he shows you that I can handle whatever you throw at me? It's a perplexing place to be, where we're a month into the season and I have more questions about Ohio State's offense than I do its defense. And it's not because of I don't think they have talent. It's not because I don't think they have a scheme that can work. It's because I'm trying to understand where this coaching staff is coming from and why they have approached the season the way they have so far, because it hasn't burned you yet. And maybe it doesn't burn you, but also, if you're looking for reasons for why Ohio State loses a football game, it's not because of its defense. It's not going to be because of its players. I think it might be because of its coaching staff.
Yeah, and it's something that we talked about on Buckeye Talk, after the Washington game of, last year they were able to kind of flip that switch, going from, quote unquote load management in the regular season to a high powered attack throughout the college football playoff. But, to ask your team to do that again it's difficult, right? Because sometimes you don't flip the switch, and, you can probably find a million examples of NFL teams that kind of, mosey their way through the regular season thinking, all right, but once they get to the playoffs, they'll turn it on, and it never really happens, right? I can think of a million examples in the NBA. I mean, it feels like, we used on Buckeye Talk the comparison of the Raptors with load management of Kawhi Leonard. It felt like every year for the last decade, the 76ers kind of go through the regular season. It's like, yeah, but they'll get to the playoff and they'll turn it on. And they get to the playoff, it's like, you can't just turn it on like that. And I know basketball is a completely different sport, but that's kind of the comparison we're making here of just who they have been throughout the regular season this year, and a lot of last year, is not necessarily who we think they want to be when the playoff arrives. And how do you know that it's going to work when you get there? And can you flip that switch? Or even against, not just talking about the playoff, but, Penn State, Michigan, the tougher teams on your schedule, if you need to flip the switch against them, can you do it? Big Ten championship game against Oregon. I think Ohio State has an elite defense, but they might have to score some points if they go up against Oregon. And can they flip the switch and do that? That's what's going to be interesting. I think right now, you and I would both say yes, but at a certain point, you like to see it rather than projecting it.
And I do think this week against Minnesota is a good chance to show it against a Big Ten opponent, right? I get it. The environments of the Texas game and the environments of the Washington game, maybe you didn't want to go all the way there, but this is a night game at home against a decent Minnesota team. I think this is an opportunity to again let Julian Sand and this passing attack loose a little bit, because that's the point here. We think they can do it, but you can only say we think they can do it so many weeks in a row before you have to kind of let go of preseason expectations and go with what reality has been telling you. Get the text 614-350-3315. Those are the two big things we're thinking about in terms of what we want to ask Ryan Day about, why they're so important as Ohio State heads into its first Big Ten home game against Minnesota at 7:30 on, I think that's NBC, right? NBC game, 7:30. Yeah, 614-350-3315. And if you like this, go listen to the full Buckeye Talk wherever you find podcasts. That's Steven. That's Steven. I'm Stefan. See you later.